back. I am in the building. This is Malcolm Harris with What the Truck. It is September 22nd, a glorious Monday, broadcasting live here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Of course, I'm your host, Malcolm Harris. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I did. Maybe the Atlanta Falcons can play better, but we will get into that. Not today, maybe another time. Looking at a lovely rundown today, we're going to be joined by some special guests. First coming up is going to be Travelers Vice President of Transportation, my guy, Scott Cornell. Y'all, Scott has been in the field playing ball for probably as long as I've been alive. This man here has done so much. I mean, he's essentially the go-to crime and theft specialist for Travelers. He's been doing this, again, for a very long time, been in and out since 18, right? So he's been doing anywhere from driving, anywhere from, just the typical day in, day out stuff. Spent a lot of time doing transportation underwriting, investigating cargo theft, developing new ways for, strengthening supply chains when it comes to different companies, creating programs, risk mitigation. He can paint the porch and he can get the Gatorade cooler too. So I'm excited to have Scott join me in a moment. And then also later in the show is going to be David Galbraith. So David is a VP of Global Brand and Marketing for Mack Trucks. Guys, David is awesome. We had a nice little pre-call that happened on Friday, and I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this. Essentially what he does, he drives brand and innovation when it comes to marketing strategies for Mack, right? So he spent nearly 30 years in the automotive as well as the tech industries, and he's had leadership roles with Volkswagen, Dell, and IBM. So when I tell you guys this is a jam-packed show, some heavy hitters are in the building. Before we get to our heavy hitters, we have to go to the heaviest hitter, our sponsor, Verizon Business.
Big.
Small.
Essential.
Big. Small. Essential.
Small.
Essential.
Grande.
Pequeño.
Esencial. No matter what business you're in, Verizon Business has the network and solutions you need to power it.
From the facility to the fleet, Verizon Business gives you real-time visibility into your supply chain so you can keep on trucking ahead of the demand and, of course, ahead of the competition. Learn more at verizon.com/distribution. Y'all, we have some great headlines today. Looking at this one first, all right, so apparently, as I scroll on this, there was a watchdog, right? So they are targeting the FMCSA. Essentially, it's about proficiency testing when it comes to English. So now looking at this, it's checks for CDL applicants as well as current CDL actual holders. This is all because of miscommunication that could affect potential inspections as well as on-road safety. So again, this is a possible impact on carriers and drivers, but specifically, this is going to be ESL drivers. I know that I talked about this a little bit that was in the newsletter that just came out last week. If you have not subscribed, I definitely encourage you to do so because I gave a full breakdown there. I know State of Freight was last week, guys, and this was awesome to see. So we had our Director of Freight Market Intelligence, Zach Strickland, and of course, the man with the plan, CEO Craig Fuller. They gave a full hour-long, really awesome conversation when it came to the state of freight. So that's also going to be on our website for you guys to check out. And they talked about freight volumes dipping, specifically 1.5% in August. LTL shipments were underperforming, something that kind of got me thinking as well. The market is showing signs of stabilizing. There are some silver linings ahead, and there's opportunity for logistics providers to adapt to shifting demand. So for more on that, definitely go on our website. There is a lot to see and to unpack from Craig as well as Zach. President Trump is in the news. The Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern merger is officially A-okayed by our president. So again, just to kind of put some perspective on this, y'all, $85 billion is the merger that would create the first U.S. transcontinental railroad. Of course, there was some support from President Trump. It could influence regulatory review of that, however, and there is some mixed reactions. Some shippers may benefit. Competitors are kind of pushing back, saying this is an unfair advantage. So definitely something to check out. And then this last story that caught my eye was some shipping challenges on the Rainstar, Mississippi, right? And we've seen this a lot. There's low water levels that are forcing barge size restrictions. There's a direct impact on shipping operations and supply chains. Could this drive the cost? Yes, absolutely. I think so. And will there be delays? Yes, I absolutely think so, specifically in different commodities. So, those are our headlines. I think there is a lot to definitely unpack there. But the man that I want to bring, again, I talked about him a little earlier, Mr. Scott Cornell, again, the Vice President of Transportation at Travelers. Scott, how are you, sir?
On today.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, man. I hope you had a good week. And I see the product placement with the logo in the back. So I think marketing is
Oh,
definitely
I
taking
do
care
it
of you.
myself. I mean, my talents are. Listen, I need to have you introduce me. Your description of me earlier when I heard you talking about it, best ever. So I need you to go with me wherever I go. And do that.
I can do that. I can do that. No,
You make me sound way better than I normally do. So
well, you've done a lot, man. And I think that needs to be talked about. Anytime I have somebody on What the Truck, I try to show love and man, I really was doing some digging into your LinkedIn profile this past weekend. Like you've done it all, you've seen it all, and it's just great to have you on the show.
yeah, I love being on. So looking forward to doing more with you in the future too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's just talk about your specialty because you are no stranger to this. Theft is your specialty. I mean, not committing it, of course, but helping prevent it from happening and recovering it if it does happen. So, when we start, I want to just kind of talk how do we start thinking about theft? Like, what are your general thoughts? I mean, obviously, you've seen it, you've been around it, but kind of walk like, what is the current status of what you're seeing right now in the industry?
Theft is at an all-time high. So I've been doing it about 30 years, cargo theft and supply chain security investigations, things like that. And right now, theft is at an all-time high. And you're going to see me. We have a great research team that grabs some information for me when we do these with you guys. So you may see me looking at my notes a little bit here and there because there's a lot to remember for today. But I'll jump actually ahead a little bit on the talking points because you asked, what are we seeing in theft in general? So theft, to me has always been like the current on a river, right? There's an undercurrent that is pretty consistent every day. We see, there's going to be the same certain types of theft that we see every day, and then that top current's going to change. You're going to see adjustments and things like that. And one of the things we've always talked about is cargo thieves are really good at two things in particular. One of them being knowing what to steal and when to steal it. So if we get back to our original question, cargo theft in general increased by 13% in the second quarter, and that's just one quarter after another we've seen over the past few years where we're seeing increases, no flatlining, no decrease, anything like that, right? But metals, so every year a specific commodity will pop. And this year it's been metals so far. So metals specifically are up nearly 96%. These statistics are all from CargoNet, that supplies statistics to the industry. I think they do a great job with their statistics. So as you hear me quoting numbers on this stuff, it's going to be CargoNet numbers. So in Q2, in 2024, CargoNet had 27 metal thefts reported, but for this same quarter this year, they've had 53. So again, nearly a 96% increase. And metals are involved in everything. And copper is leading that. That's the metal that leads that. And when you have a world that's electrifying itself, including electronic vehicles and all these other things, copper is going to be very valuable. Metals are going to be very valuable, and you're seeing unprecedented growth in this. And copper's trading at near or above record highs right now. And when that happens, you're going to see it get targeted.
Definitely. I remember being a broker and I had a copper shipment, believe it or not. It was actually stolen. And I'm sure you like, "Yeah, well, yeah, that's common sense." But I was at the time, I was like, why? And then I dug into it more and I didn't realize, how much it could be repurposed, it could be sold, it can be dropped in different places. So I get that. Now, let me ask, I mean, the more valuable, this is, I mean, is it the more attractive it is to thieves? I mean, are they, doing, I know electronics have been big, cars have been big, but, is there more of a strategy here or is it just a straight line like, hey, grab and dash type thing?
Yeah, so sometimes it has to do with value, sometimes it has to do with what's going on. Again, this is why we always say they're really good at figuring out what they need to steal and when they need to steal it, right?
Right.
So last year, sometimes we understand why a commodity pops, sometimes we don't. Last year, as an example, the hot commodities were appliances like refrigerators and then vacuums. And did that have to do with catastrophic events, people rebuilding homes in areas where there were storms and hurricanes and stuff like that? Maybe, but is there a direct correlation? We don't know. Metals really are a subcategory of the building materials category that we actually refer to when we talk about cargo theft. Metals have always been a targeted commodity. Throughout my career, I've seen metal theft go up and down through the cargo theft world. Uh, there's always metal theft, but then you see these big spikes like we're seeing, and sometimes that is driven by things like pricing. We're seeing skyrocketing demand for metals in renewable energy, electronic vehicle production, data centers, smart infrastructure, things like that. So, and it's both bulk and scrap copper that's getting stolen. But last week I heard about a load of brass that was stolen in the industry. Some of it's being melted down, some of it's being resold for good money. We've all heard about the catalytic converters being targeted. They have palladium and platinum in them. Studies show that roughly for every 10% rise in metal prices, there's a 20% uptick in theft around those devices. So there's some definite correlation with pricing, but it's also what's in demand, what's it being used for, what is the world needed for.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can definitely tell, Scott, that thieves just don't mess around. I mean, it's crazy. And I was thinking this in my head. I was on a flight this morning and I was excited about this interview, and I still am. And what are some of the schemes, right? And kind of the methods that these, I mean, I'll just say it, I mean, robberies, I mean, they're heist. I mean, what are some of the strategic methods that you're seeing right now? Is there a common theme amongst all these type of theft efforts from these cargo thefts?
Yeah, so there's really two categories for cargo theft. We talk about this, and I'm glad that we're always talking about this, so we're getting the vernacular right when we do these shows, right? There's really two methods of cargo theft. There's what we call straight theft because it's pretty straightforward. They physically go out and they steal the freight where it sits, truck stops, drop lots, parking lots, and then there's strategic theft where they basically trick you into giving them the freight. And when it comes to metals, we're seeing both methods used. They will follow loads out of the distribution centers where the metal's coming from in the Northeast, Southeast, anywhere they're coming from. They will follow those drivers out, and if that driver stops in what we call the red zone, which is really anywhere in that first, let's say, 150 to 250 miles, they'll wait for that driver to go in, take a break, get a meal, use the facilities, get gas, purchase road snacks, whatever it is they're going to do, and they'll steal the load while the driver's away from the truck. When it comes to strategic theft, the most common method that the industry sees is what's called the double brokering scam. And that's where they basically pretend to be the trucking company to get assigned to the load. And then when they get assigned to the load, they pretend to be the freight broker and they reassign it and have it shipped where they want to. And a lot of this is being conducted by these large international sophisticated crime rings that we've seen infiltrate cargo theft over the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the things that's been interesting this year about metal loads is no matter where they're being stolen, a lot of them are being pushed through Arizona. I'm in Arizona, so it's a little unusual for me to see, but a lot of times now we're seeing them pushed through Arizona. What's the reasoning behind that? Well, one, the CTIPS Cargo Theft Task Force and the other task forces that concentrate on cargo theft in California are doing a really good job uh, over this past year or two with recoveries and making some really good busts and things like that. So we think they want to stage the load in Arizona, get it on a truck so it can go straight to the port and moved out of the country. We do see a lot of these loads moved out of the country and sent abroad. So we think they want to stage it here so that they're not taking the risk of being caught in California with it, with one of those task forces, or it's going to go south into Mexico from Arizona. So we're seeing loads from all over the country end up being staged here in Arizona at one point.
That makes sense to me for sure. Scott, I want to kind of talk about, there was a graphic that production just had queued up, and I want to show it to you specifically because I think you could speak to this. It was when it came to the commodities that were most popular for theft. I want to say, and if we have this graphic, guys, it was it was food and beverage, and there was a different commodity as well that was popular in the most populous states. Number one was California, number two was
Right.
Texas, and then number three was Illinois. Can you speak to, I mean, population, of course, I'm sure would be that, the reasoning behind, those kind of being hot spots, but is there any type of reasoning as to, all right, why food and beverage? Where does that stuff go? And why these spots in these states specifically, to your point, as well as, Arizona too?
Yeah, when all things are normal in the cargo theft world, so great question, right? When all things are normal in the cargo theft world, and that's it's kind of strange to say, but when things are normal, food and beverage will be your number one targeted
Yep.
commodity, and largely because it's very untraceable. You don't ping it on the internet, you don't register it for a warranty, it goes away, the evidence is consumed. You can only chase food and beverage for so long before it's just gone. Whereas, a load of electronics, TVs, you name it, you can find those months down the road, even if you find a partial load. But the food and beverage stuff disappears quickly. It's easy to move. It's easy to disguise. It's largely untraceable. You know, people want, need, and use it and buy it every single day, so it's easy for them to get rid of. Household goods is usually number two. When you talk about the geography of it, it depends on what you're talking about, which method, straight theft or strategic theft. When it's straight theft, it's going to be primarily around those. California is always going to be number one. It always has been. Then, Texas is number two, and Illinois number three, like you said. And those positions can shift, but California has always been number one. Well, what do they all have in common? Port cities, large population density, high, strong economies, arterial highways that go through there, the ports and the surrounding areas around the ports. When it comes to strategic theft, we've really seen that geographic map change a lot, because with strategic theft, they can actually be anywhere and target freight anywhere. So we're seeing cargo theft on that strategic scale move to what we would consider non-traditional areas for cargo theft. Those are the things that those areas have in common, pretty much.
Scott, I could talk to you for hours about this. I'm so fascinated. So I want to kind of talk in terms of a broker because, again, I did it. I've done it multiple, both international as well as domestic. So kind of walk me through as a broker and really a carrier as well. What can I be doing? Somebody in my seat be able to do to prevent cargo theft? Like, what is something that I should always be checking for? What process should I always be following when it comes to prevention?
Well, you used a key word there, process. So when we work with our clients, when I talk to clients or I'm working with anybody, I teach process first, right? Let's not jump right to technology. Let's not jump to solutions that are supposed to be the fix all. Let's get good process and procedures in place first. And that's whether you're trucking or freight brokers or anything like that. If you're in trucking, the next level would be, hard locks, deterrence, things like that. And then your third layer would be technology, use of covert tracking, things like that. If you're a freight broker, TAPA, the Transported Asset Protection Association, just released the TAPA freight broker security requirements. That really puts a good baseline of process and procedures in place for freight brokers on how to vet carriers. And that's really, as a freight broker, that's the key thing right now. Making sure that you are dealing with who you think you're dealing with, that the person you're talking to or the person that's trying to get that load really is ABC Trucking. And you can do that through, like I said, those TAPA standards give a good baseline. But there is some really good technology and some services that have come out over the last couple of years that are that final layer that a freight broker can add to help vet carriers.
No, I completely understand and think that process is something we should follow. And the inevitable is always going to happen, right? If a load does get stolen, I mean, for my listeners out there, do you have any tips, right, on how to recover a stolen load properly and kind of make up, that loss that you're gonna have to tell your customer, you're going to have to, kind of speak with your driver about as well?
Yeah, for us, we have our SIG team, our special investigations group that recovers cargo for our clients as often as possible. I think in general, we started talking about metals. Metals is a particularly difficult commodity to recover unless it's some kind of custom metal or custom product that's easily identifiable. It's going to be hard to identify. There's things out there that can help you when it comes to metal in particular, like some microdot technology systems where they have these almost microscopic dots that actually have serial numbers in them and information in there, and they're registered with a secure database that law enforcement can access, things like that. Sometimes, if you find it in a warehouse and it's been taken off the truck and it's been removed from everything else that identifies it, you have to have these ways to identify it. Sometimes you're seeing electroplating of codes onto copper wiring in particular. As a last ditch effort, if you're just moving, raw metals or plates or pipes or something like that, you can go get a UV light marker and just put numbers on it or put your company name on it, things like that, so that it would only show up under a UV light. There's different ways, but you have to figure out some way that you can identify that commodity. In general, for recoveries, obviously you're always going to call 911 first, but then you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan in place at your company on what is everybody's job, because if you're trying to figure it out during the theft, it's not going to go well for you.
Definitely. I think that is great and sound advice. And, to kind of wrap up and kind of put in perspective what you said and, the notes I have, I mean, having freight marked, right, being coded, traceable, I mean, it's going to give law enforcement a chance whenever you do make that call to 911. But then, if it's stolen and not recovered, where do I go from there? I mean, I know I got to talk to my boss if I'm a broker, or I got to explain to the ABC trucking company, like, hey, like this is an issue, but like, where else should I go?
Well, that's, for us, that's where Travelers comes in, right? We're going to help you with that, help you handle that claim, and then do that. And in general, you're going to reach out to your insurance carrier and work with them ideally. So
That's awesome. Hey, that was an alley oop to you. So I was Kobe there, and you just put it in the rim like
I'll take
Shaq.
it.
So I appreciate it.
Hey, great first show with you, Malcolm. Great to be on with you. Thanks for giving me some time today.
Hey, thank you so much again, Scott Cornell with Travelers Insurance. Man, just a great guest, an awesome guest. And I told you guys earlier in the show the return of the Mack, and you guys are going to enjoy this man a ton. Again, Vice President of Global Brand and Marketing for Mack Trucks, David Galbraith. David, are you in my ear? Can I hear you, sir? Looking dapper as ever. My goodness, I'm underdressed.
Hey, Malcolm. How's it going, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
Very good. Very good. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course. Thank you so much for being on. I'm super excited about this interview. Our pre-call went very well, and you've done so much. I mean, you've worked across automotive and tech. I told, in the beginning of the show, brands Volkswagen, Dell, IBM. What drew you into trucking, and why Mack specifically? I want to know that.
Yeah, I think it wasn't so much trucking in and of itself. It was more the Mack brand. Talk about an iconic brand that's been around forever, 125 years this year. So the real appeal to me was being able to, reignite this brand in a way that was really authentic and really fun. And they offered me the opportunity to do just that. It's been great so far. So as I'm learning a ton about the trucking industry now, I'm learning even more every day, but I'm also able to kind of shine some lights on areas there. Some marketing ideas come to light from both technology and from automotive.
Your experience is very, very unique, and you're able to shape the way you approach brand and driver engagement. But how are you able to do that specifically at Mack, knowing the illustrious history it's had, knowing the iconic, built like a Mack truck? I mean, that's a statement.
Yeah, I love that statement. Built like a Mack, hits like a Mack. All these refer to a really strong heritage. I think what I try to do is take the best of what we were historically and project that into the future. In doing so, we carry a lot of that quality, reliability, durability. But for me specifically, the brand is so much more than that. And it's got to be much more than that as we move forward. So there's elements of innovation, entrepreneurship, sophistication, smart, all those things have to dimensionalize the brand as we move forward. So I love the heritage. I think it plays a really strong role. I think almost as strong as the community of people that believe in Mack. But for us to move forward, we've got to embrace some new ideas. And we're doing that now.
you are doing that now, and I can tell that it's happening before my very eyes. I mean, there's a shift, and I want to talk about what you've noticed because you're in and day out between the marketing of passenger vehicles versus these heavy duty Mack trucks.
Yeah. I mean, on the outside, it looks really similar. They're both on a highway. They're both, um, you know, they have marketing around it. You're trying to appeal to these folks, but the reality is the biggest difference, by and large, and I avoid the conversation of, class anything below a class 6 truck. Cars, you're not always. It's not an ROI equation, right? It's in trucking, you have to deliver every day.
Right.
In cars, in certain cases, yeah, it's important to you, but you can take an Uber and get to work if it breaks down, or you can borrow your husband's car, or whatever it might be. So the most significant difference for me is accepting the fact that this is a truly B2B, it's return on investment kind of thinking at the fleet manager level and corporate level. But the magic here is that people are people everywhere. If you communicate effectively, if you understand what their issues are and what they're facing and what their challenges are, I believe that crosses the boundary between both. That absolutely crosses the boundary. So, from my perspective, I look at the similarities, which is I'm not just going to show you a photo of a truck on a highway. I'm going to do something that's going to try to engender a level of engagement, of emotion, of participation with the brand versus what we've always done in the past, which is here's the new truck, kind of blurred wheels shown on the highway, yada, yada, got it. So we're going deeper, Malcolm. We've got to go deeper. We're retracing our roots a little bit, like I said earlier, looking at what makes us great. And we're going to push that forward and make us even greater.
Gosh, that is so brilliant. I absolutely love that. Holy smokes. Now, let me ask you this because you talked about, your vision, from a marketing standpoint, and I want to really dive into that, but more so when it comes to your connection on specifically the vision for connection rather when it comes to drivers, dealers, and fleets. I mean, what is that? Because I know the wheels are always turning up here. So what does that vision look like?
Yeah. So the vision, you know, we don't walk in and just snap our fingers and make this stuff happen.
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy. But the reality is when we started this initiative, we actually had to reposition ourselves a little bit. We had to go look at in something in the segment that we call brand positioning and better understand and gain clarity around what it actually means to be Mack.
Right.
And what we discovered isn't so much that we build great trucks or that we're trustworthy or all this other stuff, which we are, but the real, Simon Sinek's his golden why. His golden why is we want to be the most preferred truck brand. We want
Right.
drivers to prefer Mack most. Well, when we talk to truck drivers that have relied on us in the past, one of the things that comes crystal clear is that there's this confidence and pride in ownership, this legacy of success, these elements that says it was the truck and I. It wasn't just the truck, it was the truck and me, it was the truck and my company. All these help build this legacy, whether you're a two truck person or whether you've got over 50 highway trucks. So when we started going that route, we knew we had something special, but we had to dive a little bit deeper to better understand, like I said earlier, what are some of the challenges that they face? And we did a bunch of research, and I think you've heard this before, or other people have expressed this perhaps on your podcast or elsewhere, but the truck driver concerns around retention, around the driver shortage, that's every motor carrier concern.
Yeah.
Get it, got it, good. So, probably drug shortage has been the number one issue 5 of the last 7 years in some of the research I looked at. And it's actually a bigger issue than fuel prices for most. So when I look at that, what does that equal? That equals, well, it's the driver, dummy. Focus on the driver. If what do we do? How can we help our customers be successful? And so if we focus on the driver, then we got to understand the driver a little bit more. And right now, you probably see this again as well, but they're fairly underappreciated. There's a level of thinking that this is no one really appreciates my time, my effort, my work, as I deliver all these valuable goods and services to people. And on the flip side of that, the fleet managers are like, listen, I need productive drivers. I can't always give you raises or better route or whatever it might be, but I need productive drivers to stay in business. So how can I do that? So balancing that, you start to understand what is the real conundrum here that we're trying to resolve. And we're in a place where, you know, everybody in the industry is kind of responsible for it. But this idea that our drivers probably aren't that healthy, they're somewhat apathetic about the truck. They may not even know the truck name. They probably don't know that much about the truck in general. They see it as a stepping stone job. All that stuff is painful. It's painful for our fleets. It's painful for the drivers. So how do we resolve that? Well, that's where our latest focus is really focusing in on giving some appreciation where it's earnestly deserved.
No, I think that was so well said and stated. And David, let me ask, because as I hear you talk, I'm thinking to myself like, man, he has one of the hardest jobs I've seen, because you're always kind of, it's like a seesaw when we were kids. Like you're always doing this balancing act. Because on this side, right, you got toughness and legacy, right? Like Mack Truck has been around 125 years, like the standard. But then also it's the need for the future, for more finesse, for technology, for modernization. How are you kind of balancing the beams with you as well as your team on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's a good
Because
question.
that's
I think
tough.
I do, it is tough. I don't think that whole phrase "built like a Mack truck." I don't hold that to QRD solely, quality, reliability, durability.
Right.
When I look back, again, just not using rearview mirror as a predictor of the future, but when I look back, broadly speaking, that built like a Mack truck was across its design, its engineering, its everything.
Yeah.
So I see going forward not as a mantra that we'll use and rely on. I think it's probably something that will be thematically pleasing to everybody. This built like a Mack truck. We'll keep it, but we probably won't use it as campaigns. I think we portray what we know the industry needs as we move forward. I think to become the driver's preferred truck, to become the fleet's preferred truck, we have to embrace the solutions that surround the truck. It's more than just being a tough truck at this point. It's got to have sophistication, entrepreneurship, smart, all those elements that we look at and we try to imbue. And I think I love the trucks that we offer. I think they are a perfect example of how we do care for the trucking community, the driver community, and the truckers. I think if I looked at the everything that went into it and equated it to a car, this is the kind of car that I want to own. Everything that goes into it, the technology, the robustness, the safety steel, the passive and dynamic safety attributes, the suspension. It's it's amazing, man. It's absolutely amazing. It's a watershed moment for us. But I'm not really here to sell the truck. That's kind of beside the point. I think what's important is something that's on your mind, which is telling this in a way that's authentic, that doesn't come across as just icing on a cake. The reality here is it's so much more than that, Malcolm. It's so much more. I so believe in the engineering teams here. I so believe in the design teams here. They really are a step above for me.
You all have such a great team and such a great quality operation. It's really really admirable to sit down and chop it up with you. Let me kind of transition into this tweet that caught my eye. If you don't know, I live on X. Everybody follow at FW What the Truck and tweet, comment. I'm always living on there. I'm probably too much chronically online, but I saw this tweet and it was it was cool because it was a subtle video, but then also it was, a message, right? For being able just to, be grateful for drivers, but then also it wasn't corny or cliche. I mean, it was a nice video with some B-roll to kind of show what's going on in terms of the world of Mac. Some drivers, they can feel like these posts come off as surface level. They're just like, oh, whoop-de-doo, right? Like this is just another, tweet. But like, how can you all and how do you all ensure that your digital footprint and your voice it reflects what you just discussed in terms of real world actions? I got tongue tied there. I'm sorry.
Mhm, mhm. It goes back to a little bit to making sure we understand, that the golden why, understanding what we're here to resolve. In doing that, it's understanding their challenges and understanding their challenges. Then you look for, well, I can't boil the ocean here, but what can I solve? And so the solutions that we have in this particular case, this was a very whimsical element, and I give credit to where credit's due. This is my team. This is Cassie McDaniel and James Cook who came up with the Mack Hotel,
Yeah.
and the whole idea was we believe we've redefined a level of comfort. What's a new way for us to say comfort? Well, a luxury hotel is an adjacency. It's a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of far fetched. But we said, well, what if? What if we put this in at Kenley, a great truck stop, and they allowed us to really leverage it and showed truckers a real appreciation. And yeah, this is a little bit of a hat tip, but at the same time, it makes the point that the biggest thing we can do for truckers right now is give them a truck that really does start to address some of their needs, the visibility that they all need, the comfort, the heating, cooling, massage seats, the additional space they need, a more comfortable mattress. All these elements start to tack on to allowing them to say, you know what, it is a hard job, but hey, at least I've got potentially the best truck on the highway to solve a long haul issue.
This
So
is
it was a little bit of a hat tip. It is a fun, quirky video. The whole thing is really interesting, but the responses that you see are authentic. We didn't pay these people. They're all, you know, for the most part, real truckers.
outstanding. So well done. I was looking at it, I was just like, man, this is crazy. And you can feel the, authentic nature of the video, of the interactions. It was shot extremely well. I mean, everything was just 10 out of 10. And you can continue to see that throughout, all your social media platforms. I know I was speaking with some of your team and I was doing some creeping this past weekend. It's just outstanding. So please just from me, just tell them and, from the entire show, like it's job well done. And I know, yes, driver appreciation week is past. So, how do you all, specifically at Mac, make drivers feel appreciated, not just during the week, but throughout the year? How does that happen?
Yeah, yeah, that's a tougher one. I think the most obvious conclusion, and it is a bit cliche, the truck represents a monument to appreciation. We could have done a super value oriented truck, fiberglass everywhere, low quality materials throughout the cab, and delivered something that perhaps cost of ownership wise would have been at least out the door cheaper.
Mhm.
But if you go back to what these motor carriers value, if you go back to what the truck drivers need, they need things that attract drivers. They need drivers to feel appreciated. And so this is the way we can do it. Now, don't get me wrong, we're members of the ATA. We support Share the Road and Workforce Heroes, both programs that they manage, and we try to do things where we can. But our greatest appreciation is shown through the trucks that we build.
Outstanding. Now,
I mean,
there's a
y-
lot when it comes to your seat and your role. What does driver appreciation look like versus things that just don't resonate? Because that tweet resonated, right? Different media you put out
yeah.
has resonated. What does that look like to you versus something you're just like, guys, this is stupid. Let's go away from that.
Well, I don't. The thing about social, Malcolm, you understand this better than anybody. It's meant to be a place where we can flex a little bit, not flex in the muscular sense, but we can have charming entertainment elements, and then we can have something that's a little bit more heartfelt, and we can have some serious conversations. So the beauty of the social realm is, you know, I might have a post that is a little bit more whimsical and points out some unique attributes, but at the same time, the next day, next week, I can have something that's a little bit more serious. I don't think our followers only want super serious content. I don't think they want sales content at all.
Yeah.
But I do think they want stuff that's like, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, that's interesting, I can share that. That's what we try to focus on.
David, you just get it. Like it's great to see someone, in a role like this that like can put themselves in the shoes, at whatever, kind of level within their organization, specifically in a marketing perspective. Like you just understand it. And what I love most, outside of you being one of the best storytellers I've had on this show, like I could talk to you for hours. They're gonna be in my ear pretty soon. But what I love most is your vision, right? You just understand and kind of talk to the listeners as well as our viewers, the vision for Mack from your seat in the next 2 to 3 years. What does that look like?
Right. I guess there's two parts to it. One is the current campaign we're running is titled Driven by Heroes. And,
Yeah.
you know, not tongue in cheek, but from where I sit, real heroes, they're obviously not from they're not from other planets. They don't leap buildings in a single bound, all that stuff, right? They haven't been bitten by a spider and suddenly imbued with superhuman powers. No way. Our real heroes from our perspective are family members. They're our neighbors, right? They they're truck drivers and they navigate the highways every day, delivering everything we have in our house, the food, the medicine, the diapers that we need on the store shelves. In a very literal sense, they transform highways into lifelines, bridging these communities, these great distances, and they do it day and night, almost 7 days a week. So, from our perspective, as I think about it, if from my seat, really, I think real heroes drive trucks. And from Mack's perspective, they deserve the absolute best we can imagine, engineer, and build. So, over the next 2 years, Malcolm, I want people to feel that. I honestly believe they are a really important attribute in our economy. And I think we have a solution. And I think fleet carriers probably believe many of the same things I do.
If you could talk directly to a fleet carrier, a driver, which I'm sure you do due to the content that you produce and your team produces, I know again, Trucker Driver Appreciation Week was last week, but based off of what we talked about, this is going to be a common theme in what a pillar is for Mack Trucks. What would you tell the driver that's, hey, they're not having the best day, or they've gone through, a really weird situation, or they just need some encouragement? What would you tell them, David?
Well, I think, I guess, I look at where I find encouragement, Malcolm. I don't necessarily need a stranger telling me to chin up, stiff upper lip, you're tough. No, I think I think what makes a difference is understanding,
Yeah.
sharing a limited amount or even a great amount of understanding, and just being. I tell you what, there's something to this active listening. Just letting them get it off their chest if they're having a bad day, if they're having a bad week. I think it's too assumptive for me to give them guidance and advice. Everybody's everybody's going to have a different issue. So I think if I can just listen to them, and if I have something, a bit of advice, sure, I'll pass it along. But generally speaking, when I'm having a bad day, I just need someone to listen to me for a little bit, right?
100%. I mean, that is what it comes down to. I think oftentimes we get lost in people not listening and not being genuine. And I think that you figured out the secret sauce to this early, and it's permeated down to your team. If people want more information about the Mack Hotel, Mack Trucks, you in general, your team, updates, just everything Mac related, where can they connect with you or find you guys online?
Yeah, so we're on just about every channel. I think the LinkedIn we're very strong. I think Instagram we're very strong. I think Facebook we're fairly strong. I think we're still exploring TikTok. I know I don't know how many drivers are on TikTok, but I think we're still exploring that. Obviously, those are probably the quickest ways for them to be in touch with either ideas, content, feedback, whatever it is. We do read it. That's probably the simplest way. Then there's always email, going online to macktrucks.com. You can do form fields there and contact us through that. Um, those we love the feedback. We're better when here's the amazing thing. We have failed, right? We will
Right.
continue to make maybe some spots that aren't great, some posts that aren't great, but we learn from it. And I think everybody is stronger for it on my team. So I'm hoping we have 100% success, but I think that's unrealistic. So if our followers and people that are first time listeners to this want to provide feedback, those are the places I'd go and provide it.
Amazing stuff. I could talk to you for the next 2 hours, and I cannot wait to hopefully meet you soon in person so we can really,
I'd
really
like that.
chop it up
I'd
like
like
we
that.
need to, because this was an amazing conversation. David, thank you so much for coming on What the Truck. Seriously, you knocked this out the park, brother. I really, really do appreciate you. And to your point, your team is only a reflection of you, and that reflection is a star because you guys are about to just absolutely continue doing this. So thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate your time, Malcolm. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for the kind words. All right. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Of course. Again, y'all, it was a beautiful show. David absolutely crushed that. Scott absolutely crushed it too. I told y'all I had some heavy hitters. And you guys, I don't know if you didn't believe me, but they absolutely did their thing and more. Appreciate both of them. Y'all, this article officially dropped today and got notified of it a little bit before the show. The Freight Tech 100 is officially out, y'all. The Freight Tech 100, as you all know, is one of the most prestigious lists in all of the industry, and it is officially out. So this is showing recognition to all the companies that are leading the way in terms of supply chain, tech, as well as innovation in this space. So please, please, please go check that out. And then also, F3, I'm going to sound like a broken record until the event happens because, yeah, technically I'm paid to say it. But then also, it's the Future of Freight Festival here in Chattanooga, Tennessee from the 21st and the 22nd of October. It is going to be huge, monumental, legendary, 6-7, whatever the kids are saying. That's what it is going to be. So make sure you guys are here because you'll be lame if you're not. I don't know why you would not come to F3. It's going to be awesome. And another thing that's going to be awesome is Wednesday's show. The road ahead. Listen, I had to call my dogs, and that's a little snippet of what is going to be the show name for Wednesday. But I got two guys that are going to join me, and both of them are really incredible podcasters. One goes by the name of Marcus Lewis. We connected a couple of weeks ago. You guys may know him in the space. And then also Matt Dahl, that's a dog with a pod, and he's going to be on the pod with his dog. So you guys make sure you all are tuned in for Wednesday's show. That's it for today. It's What the Truck with Malcolm Harris. Y'all, I appreciate it. See you on Wednesday.